All right, on part two, we're going to cover importing into a database structure for all the data that we read in for the CSV file, or in this case, the pipe delimited file. So first step, I'm going to go ahead and create a structure based on the data that we have. So I'm going to add in here a new table. And by the way, I'm using Table Plus. It's mainly a free download. There's a paid version, but the free version allows you to do quite a bit with it. And I think if you start to use it, I think you'll like it. There's also SQL Pro as well, which is free for Mac. Let's call this table testing. And it's going to set up with an auto increment automatically. I'm just going to add another column, which is going to be first name. We're going to make it a varchar 250 to hold the data. We're going to add another one for last name. Same thing, varchar 250, it's a string, and then one more for the phone that we have, and that's also going to be a varchar. We'll do 50 on that one, that's plenty, and then save it. Control S or Command S for Mac. And now we have our structure where we'll have first name, last name, phone. And if we take a look and look at the data, shouldn't be anything in there, good. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and set up the database connection. So we're going to go ahead and create a dbgo file. So reference the package main, do our import, and we're going to start with FMT. In case I got to spit something out, I'm going to copy some of the stuff that I already have. Now, I use GORM as the access to the database. I find it to be a really good ORM library. When I'm using Go, it gets raving reviews. Some people don't like it. I mean, you're welcome to use anything you want, but I'm going to use for this tutorial GORM or GORM for the access to insert the data to the database. So I have MySQL set up as my database structure, so if that's what you're using, go ahead and use that as your connector, same as me. Other thing I want to do is I want this to be accessible, so let's go ahead and create a variable that's going to hold the data. And it's a reference to the database, and then when it loads, we want this function to be called. So you can call a init function, which will basically fire up when the application loads, and we can set up our connection data right in here. So let's create a connection. And we're going to say sprint F and the at TCP V I think this is right. And lucky for you, you can copy and paste or use the data that's on GitHub. It's in the link below. UTF-8 is my database, MB4, and I usually set the UTF parameter because you never know what data you're dealing with. That's good enough for that. Oh, we need to set up the config stuff. So we need basically set the DB user. So in my case, it's root. I think my password, we'll leave it blank for now because I don't remember. And I'm at my localhost 127.0.0.1, and then port number is going to be 3306, I think. And then database name is import. And we'll just test with that and see how it turns out. All right, so we're gonna basically set the database here and open it with GORM. And we're gonna reference MySQL as the driver and use the connection as the connection string. So this is basically your connection string that's gonna connect to the DB, and then GORM will basically set you up so you can utilize the calls to and from the database. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that we close the database, because that's super important. And then if there's an error, then we're going to go ahead and log that error. So we're going to do fmt.print line and print that error. Actually, you know what? We're gonna stop right here, and we're gonna go ahead and just panic out. I don't want to continue if there's an issue with the database. If everything else went well, let's go ahead and print that everything was good. I'll say this, and then our connection. Typically, what you'd want to do is set up the connection to the database using an env or some other data that's read outside, so your code is not being stored in the GitHub repository. Anyway, there is another feature that you can do where you can turn on a log mode, which comes with GORM. I'm going to turn it on. It just basically gives me more debugging information and allows me to see everything that's going on. Highly recommend it. So now that we've got this set up, we've got the init. Now we just basically need to create a model here. So we're going to call this, I'm going to call it model for now, because I'm not good at naming. We're going to set up same thing, package main, import FMT for now. And then we're going to do insert row function call. And in here, we're going to have our creation process. So the way that it works in here is that your if error and then db.create, and then you're basically going to say create with whatever the data is that you have. So in this scenario, I'm going to actually pass a parameter with the data here. So we're going to say data, and before I do that, let's set up a struct. So we're going to do type import. Actually, we'll call it data. I don't know what else to call it. And then we've got a first name, which was a string. We've got a last name, which is a string. And then we've got phone, which is going to be treated as a string for now. Here, we're going to do a pointer to data. So at this point, we should be good. Now I can just dereference the data field, and this is basically going to say data that gets passed in for that data struct is going to be created. And if there was an error, you can add this on, which is really nice. You can say error not equal null, and you can actually write out the error here. I'm just going to panic if there's a problem. For now, for this example, we're going to save that, and oops, wants me to write a comment, data storage. Okay, so at this point, now what we want to do is come back to our import, and we basically want to, instead of printing out the row, we're going to actually do the insert here. So let's comment that out for now. And let's go ahead and do, let me get the name of that again, insert row. And you can actually set up the struct like this. You can define the struct, so you can say data. We can do, I keep forgetting the name, data, simple enough. And then you can say first name is row 1, and then last name is row 2, whoops, 1. Always starts with a 0, so it's 0, then 1. then 2. So row here, and always want to end it with a comma or it's going to throw an error. Here we're going to pass data. All right, let's test this out. Okay, got an error. Oh, yeah, the init function fires off once, but then it, since you're not doing anything with the connection, it will close it. Let's just comment that out for the moment for this example. Let's clear that out. Run this again. And import.data does not exist. Let me figure out what the name of the, oh, it's testing. So let's go ahead and fix that. Set it to testing. I forgot that's what we named it. My bad. Probably been easier to just change the table. That's okay. We'll deal with it. And now let's just change it here where it's referencing. Testing. We'll leave that. That's fine. Clear this out. Rerun it. Import testings. Okay, so this is a problem with GRM where you can actually set this to say, hey, don't do that. It's like table. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Singular table true. So you can, it's basically trying to add the table as a plural name. I have testing and it's trying to do testings by default. For this example, I just want to show you that you have the option to actually set it to the table name that you want it. There's also another way too. You can set it on the struct and you can define here and set the table name, but this does it global for all the connections. So all the tables are treated as singular and they don't try to add the plural on there. So we run this and it logs out and says that it did go ahead, it went ahead and inserted the data. If we look at our table and hit refresh, and there we have it. We have the data in the database. So now we can run this and pull in all the data for the file and import it into the MySQL table, and everything's happy. I want to show you one other thing that's really important because you're probably going to run into this. On this connection setting, you really want to have a parse time true because you're going to start having all kinds of issues. You just want to set it like that. I would leave that, and then as you're parsing the timeout, it'll take care of stuff. And I'll do another video that shows the details of how I handled like timestamps and stuff like that and how to convert them. I'll do that as a part 3 video on top of this. All right, that's it for now. Thank you.